Hello and welcome to Tier Fun. I am your guide through Modern, Andrew, and today we've got a bit of a spicy one, I'd say. Maybe spicy isn't the right term, but it's spicy to me. It's a Pyromancer deck, blue-red Pyromancer. To be precise, it's kind of like blue-red good stuff. But anyways, this deck aims to get an advantage by casting a whole lot of spells while Pyromancer's on the battlefield. We're trying to delay and interact with opponents in the early stages of the game with Mana Leak, Lightning Bolt, Electrolyze, Cryptic Command, Snapcaster, Do It All Again, Make a Million Tokens. You know the drill with Young Pyromancer at this point. The spiciness comes in to play with my Nimble Obstructionist package. Thundermaw hasn't been seen in Modern in a while. Locust God, and these are all cards that I've been interested in testing out in Modern. And when I saw this shell, which went 5-0 in a league a few days ago, I believe, MTGO user Habakiri, if memory serves, went 5-0 with this. Their deck list didn't have my spice. It had Planeswalkers, Jace the Architect of Thought, Tamiyo, Moon Sage, Keranos, not a Planeswalker, but kinda, and also Chandra Pyromaster, so the older one. So they're running a bit more control, and we're more aggro control. These cards have all been cards I've been wanting to try out, the Obstructionist and stuff. Oh, also they run Shadow of Doubt instead of Trick Bind. Because I'm running Obstructionist, I wanted to run a Trick Bind instead of Shadow of Doubt just to see. I'm kind of testing out what poor stifle effects we have in Modern, see if they're any good, and see what matchups they are good in. They seem playable in my head. I just want to get some data behind it, I guess, and record some matches with them. So, we've got Crucible of Worlds also to deal with any big mana decks. We got 2 Tech Edges, Ghost Quarter. We can lock people out of the game, hopefully, if games go long enough, where we can just Tech Edge on top of Tech Edge on top of Tech Edge. Keep Tron or Ghost Quarter. Keep Tron off their lands, or Valakut even. So, here's the first match for these sets of videos. The downside to, sorry, I got off track for a sec. As you've probably noticed, I'm actually recording over recording. My audio messed up the last 2 times I've tried to do this. So I'm hoping the third time's the charm here. I'm also hoping that this one land works out for us. We just had to mulligan twice. We topped a mountain, so we're going to be able to interact with Mana Leak. But yeah, obviously you never want to mulligan to 5, but our first 2 hands just did not have the lands we need. So we're in a spot to counter anything that comes down next turn if it's serious enough, but surprise, nothing's coming down next turn. We're playing against Living End. So this hand is actually fairly adequate, assuming we draw lands and then more interactive spells against Living End. Mana Leak can get the first Living End, and from there we're off the top of our deck. Cryptic Command, great card to have in this matchup. Not so great when we only have 2 lands and we've just missed our first land drop. It's unfortunate, but we're gonna play through it. Opponent is going whole hog on the graveyard here. We're gonna be pretty excited to counter this first Cascade trigger. And for those who haven't played against Living End before, Living End is a suspended spell that they cheat into play by cascading with Violent Outburst and one other spell. Basically, they cast their enabler and then they play Living End for free. Living End wipes the board and puts all the creatures in the graveyard onto the battlefield. And they break symmetry by cycling tons of creatures into the graveyard. So they're always going to, or their plan is to have more creatures in the graveyard than you do. We didn't mana leak that because if we mana leak that, we don't have mana leak for the actual living end, the actual threat. We probably should have bolted the beast and not face. We don't end up getting punished here. Violent Outburst doesn't target a creature, but they have 8 Cascade Enablers, and the other 4 actually do target creatures. So it's probably best to bolt the beast there if we're, hoping to draw lands and then hoping to fade as many Cascade Enablers as possible. But, it ended up not mattering. So sideboard here, we want our Graveyard Hate. We want as much interaction as we can muster. I think Spell Pierce is good. I would bring it in. It's not phenomenal, but you really just need a critical mass of interaction against this deck. And we have a few dead cards. Roast is pretty dead. We don't want to be... we really don't want to be in a position of dealing with them one for one, their creatures, after they've been returned. That's a losing proposition. So Roast is effectively a dead card. Nimble Obstructionist and Trickbind can counter the Cascade trigger, which is a pretty big game in this matchup. I believe I sideboard out Trickbind in this first match, but I don't think it's correct. I think I should leave Trickbind in. Locust God's probably a little too slow. Honestly, though, thinking about it, Locust God might be better than Thundermaw just because you can slam it down on an empty board, or really on any board, and if they get to living end, it'll come back to your hand, so you can cast it next turn. Thundermaw, I'm sure it's going to crack in for 5, but if that's not killing them, it's not really doing much. So I think that's how I would sideboard a little differently. Thinking about it now, I would put out Thundermaw, leave Locust God. Also, we got rid of Grim Lavamancer because it's really just pinging them for 2 every turn, which it's a clock, but it's not a great clock. So our opening hand has 2 lands. We prefer more, but we're also sitting on a pile of interaction. This is a pretty ideal hand. I'm gonna fetch. I'm bolting myself to cast Serum Visions this first turn. I'm really looking for lands, though. I suppose my game plan is to play Young Pyromancer on turn 2, so I'm visioning now because I want to have my interaction up for as early as possible, for as long as possible. And turn 2, barring any Simian Spirit Guide shenanigans, is one of the few windows I'm going to have, probably the only window to play Young Pyromancer early in the game and still hold up interaction. So I decided to shock myself here. That gives me an out of, I guess, drawing Island into Cryptic. I don't know. I don't know if shocking myself for that land is 100% necessary right there, but, it's a small margin. Okay, so we're in a good spot here. We've got Young Pyromancer, which is going to force them. It's going to make them feel pressure to living end early. So the earlier we get a living end down, the better. Hopefully we draw Graveyard interaction this next turn. We're visioning here once again to entice an early living end that we can entice them to play into our interaction. And we're also looking for more lands. And as you just saw, we had 2 on top. That's great. We have a Snapcaster Mage to snap back any of our interactive spells. This hand is looking phenomenal right now. This is exactly the hand, maybe not exactly the hand, but it is a very good hand for this matchup, for being on the play especially. So they're going to cycle here. I think they cycle again. Yep. So we're really relying on this mana leak right here to do us some good. I believe opponent goes for it here. No. They go for Fulminator. Right. So I leak here because, as I said earlier, our lands are very important, and we're our game plan is basically to snapcast back interaction as we slowly keep them off living end and build our elemental token elemental token advantage. So in order to do that, we need lands, and the more the merrier, really. So we can snapcast back Mana Leak next turn if they go for it. So there's not a big opportunity cost. We paid Mana Leak to save a land, basically, which I think that's good. Now, if we didn't have Snapcaster, I probably would have... I think you have to let that resolve, but Snapcaster lets us do some things. We're not tapping out there. We cannot go shields down, especially when we have, we're swimming in interaction. There's no point to tap out. We'll let them play into our open mana. That's the strategy. So there's the Cascade trigger. I go for Nimble Obstructionist here, I believe. I think it's probably best to let them cast their Living End. It's definitely best to let them cast their Living End. We'll Spell Pierce, and then we'll have Snapcaster, Spell Pierce or Snapcaster Mana Leak on their turn. We end up cycling into a Lightning Bolt, so it ends up not mattering. But that was a little cute. I was a little antsy to play Nimble Obstructionist there. Like if we didn't get Lightning Bolt and they have another one in their hand, another way to get Living End, we wouldn't have been 100% in trouble because we can get back Obstructionist comes back and then we have a Bolt, but it's not the ideal line. And if that's what we're going for, which I think that's what everyone strives for, we rarely get there, but it's good to recognize, even after the fact. So I realized here that Spell Pierce was good. Izzet Charm was good. Hang on. I sideboard out Izzet Charm. Yeah, I guess I went for Spell Pierce over Izzet Charm. Reason being, it's just more efficient on mana. So we had to mulligan that hand, unfortunately. But fortunately, we roll into Spellbomb. Quick word on Spellbomb. The original list for this deck had three relics. I felt like 3 relics was a little hefty for Graveyard Hate for a deck that has Snapcaster Mages. So I sprinkled in 2 Spellbombs. The reason being that Spellbombs can also come in against... we're bringing in all of our Graveyard Hate against a deck that graveyards as hard as Living End. We don't have to bring in Relic of Progenitus against maybe another deck that we want to bring in Graveyard Hate. We can bring in Spellbombs and then we can keep our graveyard intact. Maybe against Storm or something. But it's good to have options. I like having options in sideboards, and that's basically why I went for it. Your mileage may vary. The only problem is that I forgot to put in Watery Grave to, get full value out of Spellbomb. I still think even without a Watery Grave, I still like the Spellbomb. Just having a one-sided graveyard interaction card when I want to be actively using Snapcaster it's just good. So here I'm going to cast Spellbomb because their next turn they're going to have 3 mana and they'll be able to Living End. So I want to protect myself against that. We'll activate it in response to any Cascader. The really only other play there would be to play Young Pyromancer and kind of just hope they don't have it, which is just inviting disaster. And we get enough disaster when we're prepared for it. We don't need to go inviting it. So here, I believe they go for it on their end step. The reason being, they know Spellbomb's going to get them, so they want to pop it before they end up cycling again. They could have held out. I mean, that's another good thing about Spellbomb is you can just tap it. You don't have to pay 1 to exile an entire graveyard. If they held out there and that's a relic, they're essentially holding 1 mana of ours hostage. and you know, with the margins as razor thin as they are in this deck, we gotta take every little advantage we can. Okay, so it looks like they chose not to cast Living End there. I guess we're just deciding which land. It really doesn't matter. I think I'd rather play Island here, but it's whatever. It's like functionally the same. So we're gonna slam down Young Pyromancer here because we don't have. Next turn we'll be able to have Cryptic up. We don't have Mana Leak, Spell Pierce, Is a Charm, or anything. So we're just getting down the Pyromancer and kind of hoping they don't have a Living End next turn. But if they do, you know, worst case scenario is they're going to bring back 2 creatures if they have a land. Best case scenario is it's just Street Wraith. So, you know, I mean, it's not like we could play around it, so we might as well just play the Young Pyromancer. So this is a reason not to play Young Pyromancer. Demonic Dread can only be cast if there's a target creature. So I gave them a target for them to cast Demonic Dread. So that kind of feels bad, but it's not the absolute worst because they wasted a Living End on Street Wraith, and they only have a finite amount of Living Ends. That's another way you can go about beating this deck, is just slowly but surely answering each Living End. Here, my line is to play Snapcaster and then Bolt, but as you're about to see, I tap my Steam Vents. It's a punt! You don't want to tap your red source when it's your only one. I realized this almost immediately, and, you know, it's real unfortunate. Like, you may be asking yourself, why 2-for-1 yourself just to get rid of a Street Wraith? It's not so much about the Street Wraith as it is about me wanting a Snapcaster in the graveyard for their next Living End. Living End's a weird deck to play against, so sometimes you're presented with opportunities to get one of your own creatures in your graveyard, and unless your opponent is too far ahead of you, I would usually take those lines. Like, you want to have something. Like, for their first Living End, they're probably going to be well above, you know, they're going to have way more creatures in their graveyard than you will. But if you can grind through them, eventually you'll get to a point where their Living End, God forbid it resolves, isn't going to be as potent as it would be because you'll be able to get back a Snapcaster or Young Pyromancer. So here, it's a little bit loose to take this line because we are tapping out of Cryptic. But I mean, if they have it, they have it. Like, they're bringing back. It would have been a decent Living End, but they don't have it, so we're good. Here, we do not play the Young Pyromancer because we want to keep up Cryptic Command. I think the ideal play is to not block again. Because we have Cryptic Command, losing to a Living End when we actively have access to a Cryptic Command is not ideal. So I'd recommend waiting for that Snap Bolt thing. But they end up Violent Outbursting on our end step, which is awesome for us because we get to counter the Living End and draw a card. So far, this matchup is playing out pretty much exactly how we want. Now, you may be asking yourself why they would do that. They suspect they played around Mana Leak by not doing it on their turn, and by doing it on my turn, they forced me to tap out for their next Living End. So that would, if your opponent was to do that on your end step, I would totally be expecting another Living End. There's nothing we can do about it, of course. But that was, in hindsight, that was their line. And it's unfortunate for them that it looks like they drew their other Living End this turn. I was ready to concede right there. But they cascaded, and there was nothing there. So, unfortunately for the opponent, in playing around Mana Leak, and playing around me having Mana Leak and not Cryptic Command, they got themselves. So that's phenomenal for me. I'm still, when it happened, I felt like I missed something, so I was still playing very cautious. If I had realized what had gone on, I should have slammed the Young Pyromancer, both Pyros here. I didn't slam Pyro because I wanted to have mana available for Cryptic Command if they were to resolve a Living End next turn. Knowing what I know now, I should have just slammed it because they don't have it. So here I have an extra mana. It's okay to play. I can play Young Pyro in my head. I'm playing Young Pyromancer, and I get to slide a hand, and I still hold up Cryptic Command for when they Living End me, of course. Knowing what I assume to know now, that their Living Ends are in their hands, then we're a turn behind. But that's okay. Living End, I will either play 3 or 4 Living Ends. It looks like opponent either has 2 Living Ends in hand or 1, and that's all. They have however many Living Ends they have in their deck or in their hand right now. There's 2 in the graveyard, 1 or 2 in their hand. So their game plan now is either to suspend a Living End, which they opt not to, and their game plan is to just start casting their overcosted creatures, which once Living End starts doing that as a blue-red control tempo deck, this is exactly where we want to be. Our spells line up with their spells when they're being hard cast. So here's actually pretty important. I'm hyper-conservative. I take a hyper-conservative line, one that I do not recommend taking if you're ever in my shoes, or these exact shoes. What I'm doing here right now is I'm counting triggers, I'm counting lethal, I'm doing my, combat math to see what I can do. So I count off basically like, okay, we'll leave that bolt on top. We don't need to attack this turn. We can attack the turn after and then the turn after, and we'll be good. What I didn't factor into was that we could also attack this turn and then attack next turn and bolt, and we would still win. The reason to be that aggressive, I didn't see a reason to be that aggressive until this card was cast, Archfiend of Ifnir, which honestly it completely slipped my mind. That one card completely invalidates Young Pyromancer, and I need to be playing with much more urgency than I showed that last turn. And if you're a Young Pyromancer deck playing against Living End, you need to do the same. Because, they're one card away, they're one card in one cycle away from just absolutely dominating you. Archfiend of Ifnir was a great card for this deck to pick up recently. So, opponent, we would have attacked for 4 tokens. We would have got 3 damage in, so they'd be at 11. We'd have 7 tokens right now because we would have blocked 1. So 11. Attack in with everyone. We get in for 7, 8, 9. We get in for 9, and then we would bolt them. So we would have lethal this turn if we had attacked last turn. And I missed that line at the time. I was, like I said, I was trying to play smart. Sometimes I play too slow, and sometimes not too slow, but too conservative. With a deck like this, when you're aggro control, there's a finite window. It's very small, and you have to be able to recognize when you need to turn from responding to needing to be aggro. And if I had thought about Archfiend of Ifnir, I would have recognized that last turn that I needed to be aggro ASAP. Especially when I only have, 1 counterspell in hand. This doesn't throw off the clock, so we're still fine. And Brindlebore, another reason to be a little more aggro, but also it doesn't throw off the clock. We're good. They're functionally at 1 plus 4 is 5, and then we have 9 attackers to their 3 blockers, so we're still good. But that's another reason to not feel comfortable waiting around. You got to know, with a deck like this, you need to know your opponent's deck and you need to know your own deck. And you have to be very cognizant of when you need to turn the corner into being more aggressive. So I missed it. I missed the window. It was thankfully a little bit more open than it could have been. Like if they had Archfiend of Ifnir that turn and the Cycler, we're dead on board. But they do not, and we get out of it. So yeah, those 3 games are honestly, it's kind of the 3 ways you, as a blue-red deck, the entire matchup will play out. They're pretty typical of your typical matchup with Living End. Sometimes they run you over when you don't have the necessary cards. Other times you get to grind them out and see if your interaction matches up with their threats. And these 2 games it did, thankfully. So I believe opponent sacks Brindlebore here. You gotta do what you gotta do. Alright, round 2. We have interaction. We have a Thundermaw. It's technically a mulligan to 5 or 6 with Thundermaw. But, you know, if they're a creature-based deck, this is a phenomenal hand, and we're probably going to win easily. Oh, no. It's got creatures, but it's more of a spell-based deck. This is Burn, obviously. This hand is not great against Burn. Side note, I do not have Scalding Tarns. I picked them up after recording this video because of this match specifically. I've been an advocate of building the cheapest mana base you can for it to be functional. It hasn't burnt me in any other aggro matchups until... I mean, I just started playing this deck, so I didn't think about it. But Burn is the one deck... There's probably a few other... It's like maybe 9 out of 10 matchups you don't miss the Tarns. But this deck, this matchup, you feel it. You feel it acutely. So I decided to fetch Bolt myself. I figured fetch is going to cost me 1 regardless of when I crack it. And I imagined that the Swiftspear was probably going to deal me 2. So I, at best, was breaking even on life by doing that. And, I mean, at worst, I was breaking even on life in my mind. And at best, I was saving life by bolting it. So opponent appears to be stuck on 1 land. So on one hand, awesome. On the other hand, that means their hand is full of burn spells. Not good. So we're basically dead. If they can draw their lands, we know they have 5 cards in hand. General rule of thumb is a card in burn. A card in the burn deck is worth 3 damage. 5 times 3 is 15. So their limiting factor here is mana. They miss land again, so they have 6 burn spells in hand. Could be creatures too, but I believe they'd be playing them. So we have Cryptic here. That's good. I believe opponent goes for Bolt on my end step. Yeah, and I think I'm a little bit too aggressive with this Cryptic here. My thought process is getting a 3 damage burn spell is good. I mean, it's about the best you're going to do against burn. And since their limiting factor for how fast they can win this game is mana, I want to set them behind on lands. I think the strategy itself is good. I don't know. It's close. I think maybe that was a little bit too early for that. So here we're just going to Visions. We can't Snapcast back anything of value. And we either need lands or interaction. We see neither. Sleight of Hand is better than a random card, but I think we're at the point, like, if we have to tap a blue mana for Sleight of Hand, like, at best we get a land, and then we are still only at 4 mana. So Sleight of Hand's still a turn behind what we need to be to start turning this corner. We need to turn it real fast here, because once they start finding lands, we're just dead. So I'm debating Grim Lavamancer here over Snapcaster Bolt or Electrolyze. I come to the conclusion that Lavamancer is too slow of a clock, especially when we only have 1 red mana and multiple red mana spells we want to be playing. Opponent's Rift Bolt comes off, domes me. So the real decision here is Snapcaster Bolt or Electrolyze. I decide to Snapcaster Bolt. I think that's a faster clock. And while maybe it is a faster clock, I think I'm better served there just electrolyzing and waiting one more turn to have Snapcaster. Because Snapcaster is so valuable. The only spell we have in our hand and the only spell we have access to is Cryptic Command, which that can profitably interact with our opponent. So that Snapcaster was probably worth more than a Lightning Bolt and 2 damage a turn. So also, yeah, especially considering it turns on Searing Blaze, like we could have waited a turn. Also a thing to note, if we had Scalding Tarns, or if we had found a window, I believe there was a window earlier to fetch a tapped Steam Vents, we would have access to 2 red mana next turn, and that would mean we would win the game. We could bolt on their turn, holding up the other red, and just cast Thunder Maw Hellkite. So this match, this is the 3rd time now I've watched this match through, and this match is what got me to buy Tarns, which I should have bought years ago, because I have video evidence of a Scalding Tarn. Having a Scalding Tarn could have won me the game there, because we bolt on their end stepped, Thunder Maw, crack in. Instead, we've lost. So yeah. I'm gonna. I guess. I'm casting Electrolyze here just because. But we're dead. So yeah. Save money. I'm all for saving money and choosing inexpensive options that are functionally the same. Just know that you are always losing percentage points, especially with fetch lands. Like over X amount of game. The fact that Burn is one of this deck's worst matchup. In fact, it might just be its flat out worst matchup. I don't have the hard numbers on that, but it feels like it is. There's a reason why Habakiri has 3 Dragon's Claws in the sideboard, and it's because of this matchup and this matchup alone. I guess it's probably pretty good against Storm too, but it's really for this matchup. Burn is a tough one. So I'm bringing in all of my interactive spells except for Izzet Charm. I believe I forget about that in the sideboard. It's a big no-no. Crucible's slow, so is Tectonic Edge. I should probably sideboard out the other Tectonic Edge. Reason being, if they have 4 lands, cutting them off of land isn't doing much. Like, they're flooded at that point. On top of that, in this deck, Tectonic Edge Tectonic Edge is more of a spell than it is an actual land. We're running 24 lands. It's a heavy amount of lands. So it's okay, I think, to cut 1. Probably okay to cut 2. So we see Serum Vision's turn 1. There's no real reason to hold up Dispel. Like, we're going to get a card with that eventually. And we see Dragon's Claw. So our hand went from, acceptable keep. It's not an exciting keep at all. But, you have worse 6s. Mulliganing there. You don't want to lose by mulliganing an acceptable hand. Like, you're not excited about this 7, but it's a 7 you keep. Like, if that 7's not a keep, then maybe you shouldn't be playing the deck. But it is a keep, and we got a Dragon's Claw. So, this Dragon's Claw is going to buy us time, unless this Wooded Foothills finds green mana and Destructive Revelries us. It doesn't. All right, cool. So, Destructive Revelry is the card that we need to be on the lookout for. With that being said, Dispel is going to get an instant. So and Destructive Revelry is an instant. We should most likely, until we have a better option, keep up Dispel for a Destructive Revelry. Considering this Dragon's Claw is about the only thing we have going for us currently. Opponent played 2 spells just to get the prowess triggers. I mean, also does burn damage, but Dragon's Claw is mitigating a bit of that. So debating how important it is to have Obstructionist up here. I come to the conclusion it isn't, and that if I don't play Steam Vents tapped now, I won't have access to Cryptic Command next turn unless I bolt or shock myself, which is something you actively want to avoid doing against burn. So not only did I have good lands in my opening 7, the good lands didn't deal me damage, so that was another bonus about our opening 7. So opponent Skullcracks here. I burn my Dispel because I'm feeling antsy, and I make just too quick of a decision. Like I discussed earlier, that Dispel is good for 3, maybe 4 points of burn you're saving. It's also good for protecting my Dragon's Claw, which is, like I said earlier, the single most important card I have on the battlefield. The single most important card I have access to right now, and we have to protect that. I choose to not play Young Pyromancer here because I'm going to want to block. I need to conserve my life, and the Obstructionist is something I want to block with. I'm thinking about my outs. I want to play Pyromancer when I have another spell in hand to just start accruing value. Opponent did not bolt himself here, so I'm thinking maybe they're running light on burn. They also did not fetch a green source, so I'm thinking that they do not have Destructive Revelry, which is just mwah. We are going to flash in the old Obstructionist. Another reason I feel comfortable flashing in Obstructionist is opponent. Yep. Opponent had played all of their burn spells at basically the beginning of the attack phase. So they passed priority there, and I'm like, I'm doing this anyways, but I'm thinking that up until this point, that's what they had done. So I'm thinking, yes, I'm going to be able to get the Swiftspear here. It turns out the reason they weren't doing that is because they were saving a Searing Blaze, so we get super blown out here. So not only do we lose our Obstructionist, we gain 1 life, but we also don't get the block. It's double whammy. Searing Blaze is a very good magic card against us in particular, and we're not looking hot here. We're at 3. We just drew another Obstructionist. We don't have a way to deal with this Swiftspear. We play Pyromancer here because A, gaining 1 life, it's not nothing. And B, we still have mana to leave open for Obstructionist. We're not blocking with Pyromancer. We're blocking with Obstructionist, 100%. Because the way we win this game, like, if we trade Pyromancer there, I don't see us winning. I don't see how we win. The way we're going to win this game is by chaining spells together with the Pyromancer on the field. That's my thought currently. So opponent attacks. Doesn't play spells in the attack phase again, so thinking maybe we're going to get a block this time. No spells. Oh, spell. All right, so playing Young Pyromancer obviously just saved us. I guess it didn't save us, but still gained us 1 life. We're not blocking here. I do think about it, though. The thought isn't so much about how good a block is there. The thought is, what are my outs? And I could only think about chaining Cryptic Commands as an out. And, what are you chaining those into? Like, Snapcaster, more Cryptics? Like, we'd still need lands to cast Snapcaster Cryptic. I come to the conclusion that I can take this hit. If they play any burn spell, they have 1 card in hand. If they play any burn spell, it puts us to either 1 or 2. Sorry, I guess we were dead to Boros Charm, because that would have put them up to 4, and we would have been dealt 4. But we draw a Dragon's Claw, and they didn't have Boros Charm, so we're good. When you're playing against aggro decks, and when you're low on life, when you're playing against burn especially, you've got to decide what you're okay to lose against. Because if you play around everything, you're likely to just lose. So I chose to be okay with losing to Boros Charm. Here, I'm assuming they didn't have anything last turn, and that they don't have anything this turn, so I'm blocking. Incorrect assumption. So I end up trading away my Snapcaster, or just throwing away my, Young Pyromancer here, on an assumption that opponent didn't have anything. Not a good call. I suppose, no. If they attack and I don't block and they do have something, I'm dead. So I have to block there or else I'm dead. Things aren't looking good here, obviously. Opponent can just attack. Thankfully, okay, we're going to pause this for a second. Thankfully, opponent plays Swift Spear. Opponent could just attack me for 2 turns and I'm dead. They decide to try to finish the game. I don't know if that's right. I don't know if it's wrong because we're at 2 life. Maybe just go for it. My thought process here is, oh my god, we have something we can interact with. We gain 2 life. That's great. So we're going to cast Mana Leak. But before we cast Mana Leak, we're going to Tectonic Edge one of their lands. Our hope here is that opponent is a bit too zealous and they're not going to float mana. That's exactly what happens. And our out there was our opponent not doing the quote-unquote correct play. So you got to play to your outs. You got to play to stuff like that happening because sometimes it works. So yeah, we gained 2 life there. They couldn't pay for it. We needed that. If that didn't happen, we're losing this game. I mean, we're in a crap spot anyways, but that exact series of events needed to happen. And then we drew Snapcaster Mage. Snapcaster Mage, assuming they have no cards in hand, they have no functional cards in hand, because they would have cast it last turn for the Prowess trigger. We're both essentially top decking. The Wooded Foothills is the card I assumed they had in hand last turn. So I'm willing to call yet again that they don't have anything in their hand, and if they do, I choose Dispel here because I can't Mana Leak a 1-mana spell, and Dispel gets everything else that isn't a creature, and all their creatures are 1 mana, or sorcery, and all their sorceries are 1 mana. So Dispel, I chose Dispel, and lo and behold, they have nothing. We got to trade with them. We are somehow doing it. We're still at 3 against burn. It's not good, but we are top decking very well. Snapcaster Mage, another brilliant draw. So I see Stomping Ground. Immediately I gamble a little bit. I think maybe this build only runs 1 mountain. Looks like maybe I'm correct. But they can't have green. If they have access to green, they have access to Destructive Revelry, and that's going to lose me the game. Not only do I need 1 Dragon's Claw here, I need 2 to stay alive. So opponent taps red and a white, Lightning Helix, or Boros Charm is the assumption. And so I'm thinking here, I just drew Serum Visions off the Serum Visions. I can play Serum Visions here and get a land and play it, and I'm not dead. I'm not dead to anything here. If they have Boros Charm, I gain 2 life, go to 5, and then they deal me 4 damage, and I go to 1. So it's a tight rope to walk, but we know they only have 1 card in their hand, and the worst card they could have doesn't kill us. So we get to cast another Serum Visions, and we get to see the gloriousness that is Thundermaw Hellkite on top. Ideally, we would maybe prefer it to be a Cryptic Command, but we got to start doing damage, because if we let burn wait around for long enough, they're going to kill us. 2 Dragon's Claws or 0. They're going to get to us. So I top them both. I play my land. We have Snapcaster Dispel up, and then we have our good friend Thundermaw Hellkite to hopefully close the door on them. When it gets to 0 cards in hand, you gotta just hope. You gotta hope that you draw better than them. So beyond all reasonable expectations, lo and behold, they had Boros Charm. We weren't dead. We had 2 Dragon's Claw. But man, it's we're running real hot right here. It's pretty great. So opponent plays Goblin Guide here. I don't think that's correct. We have a blocker here for Snapcat within Snapcaster. That's just going to gain us 2 life, and we're 100% blocking. We know we have Thundermaw Hellkite coming, so we could put them on a 2-turn clock by not blocking, but you know, I've been at 1 life in this game a few too many times. Like I'm conservative, and I think the 2 life we gain from Thundermaw here is going to buy us the 3 turns that we need. Opponent needs to, I guess, draw 4 burn spells, maybe even more, to get out from behind Double Dragonclaw. And basically in the time they could draw lethal burn, we will kill them in Thundermaw. Opponent draws land and realizes that as well, and then they concede. So that game was insane, right? Like, how many times do you think I wasn't getting out of that? Every turn for me. This is now my 3rd time watching this one, and I still haven't gotten over it. This is why I've wanted to overdub and play-by-play and try to fix these sets of videos so badly, because of that match right there. It was a great one. I think it is very, 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 very worth having it out there on the internet for you guys. So I realized that I had Is a Charm in my sideboard. So I think what I'm talking about here is siding out a Tectonic Edge or Sleight of Hand. And in my organizing of interactive cards versus their deck over there, I realize I lose track of time. Not time, I lose track. And I submit a deck with 61 cards. It's a big no-no. Take out the Tectonic Edge past Andrew. You better than that. So that's unfortunate. But it's one of my, I guess, I feel like this is becoming a catchphrase for this recording series, is that it's one of those things that's kind of likely to happen in paper. Like, I've definitely accidentally sideboarded in. Something that's not likely to happen in paper is your burn opponent missing their attack step. So we should be at 19 here, but I'll take it. Opponent missing 1 damage. So, you know, we have a deck with 61 cards in it. They missed 1 damage. We're even, all right? So we're getting helixed here. Shrug, nothing we can do about it. Our hand is not ideal. It's not horrendous. Is a Charm. Can deal with Swift Spear next turn. And then we're hoping to draw lands. Like I feel like, I guess this is a 23 land, 61 card deck right now. But even when we had, 24 and 60, I feel like we've had troubles drawing lands. It could just be a small sample, but it's something that I've noticed in these videos. So we go for the Charm on our turn, playing around Prowess, unless the Madman has Mutagenic Growth. Thankfully, this is a sane burn player, and they don't have Mutagenic Growth. Full disclosure, I've run my fair share of Mutagenic Growth and burn. Don't tell anyone. All right, so Boros Charm here. I'd love to dispel that, but, you got to have Dispel to dispel something. So my line this turn was hopefully Obstructionist cycling to get rid of a land. The line here is play Obstructionist, put a clock on them, cycle Obstructionist to get us closer to Cryptic. I decide to cycle to get us closer to Cryptic. It also plays around Searing Blaze. So, they have 3 cards in hand. One of them could be Searing Blaze. I choose to play around Searing Blaze, and I choose to value a land over pressure. At 9, I don't know if that's the right choice, but it's a pretty small margin for either decision. So opponent has another Helix and a Lightning Bolt. So this game's looking slim, but lo and behold, the savior, Dragon's Claw. Can we do it again? Find out. There's no point in leaving up a mana. It's not going to stop them from playing their spells, and we need to find action. Bolt here is not nothing. It ain't nothing. Not nothing. I got to find a better phrase than that. Bolt here isn't the worst, but I bottom it because we need lands. We need lands. Our outs here, as I feel like a broken record, are drawing into lands, casting Cryptic Command, casting Young Pyromancer, casting Snapcaster Cryptic Command, and hoping it's good enough. To do all that, we need lands. We do not draw lands. We draw the next best thing, Mana Leak. Maybe not the next best thing, because they do have 4 lands, and green mana, our arch nemesis. So Mana Leak's only going to be able to get a 2-drop. Thankfully, all of their 2-drop burn spells are the ones we really want to be countering. So I'm thinking to myself, if I want to play Young Pyromancer or hold up Mana Leak. They have 1 card in hand. I decide if it's a burn spell, we're dead here to Boros Charm. I decide that it's not, that I'm okay with that, basically, and that I'm choosing to gain a life, basically, with Young Pyromancer. It's also assuming we draw an island next turn, which is the operation I'm almost always operating under when I have Cryptic Command in hand and 3 lands. It's also a good time to cast Young Pyromancer. So the assumption there was that if they have a burn spell in hand, it's not Boros Charm, and that they're not going to top deck 1. Thankfully, that is exactly what happens. Unthankfully, we draw a land that deals us 1 damage. Beggars can't be choosers, though. So now opponent is top decking, and I have a lot of interaction with my hand, so it's not looking great. And it's looking a little worse now, because they're going to be able to pay for this Eidolon. Thankfully, it deals 1 damage. Thankfully we gain a life, so we're going to be able to fetch here, if we choose to. Let's think about it. So we let this resolve. Yeah, so I don't fetch here. I should have fetched there, and I should have fetched a red source, knowing that eventually I'm going to want a red source, and that a red source will almost all, unless I draw a mountain, a red source is going to cost me life or a turn. And that was the end of a turn. It was a great time to have a second red source. So obviously I'm attacking Eidolon. I'm attacking into Eidolon because Eidolon is locking me out of playing anything but Cryptic Command. We do need access to Snapcaster. So they top deck another Eidolon. Like, okay. Unfortunate, but it's going to be all right here because we have Cryptic. So I'm thinking, do I want a Cryptic bounce Eidolon? Or do I just want a Cryptic draw? I decided to Cryptic draw because they can just recast Eidolon and they have 0 cards in hand, so we're not cutting them off of anything. So we're going to be at 3 here. I draw land. So maybe we don't fetch the turn before, but we definitely fetch here. I need to fetch here. And I think about it. I'm thinking about Snapcasting back. Is it Charm, I guess? Or what I'm going to do next turn. And I just don't do it. I should have, in one of those 2 turns, I should have got a Steam Vents, knowing that I've got a card that costs 2 red, and that is going to be my out to win this game, it looks like. And also, now we'd have an untapped red source, or, an untapped red source, so we could Snapcast back Cryptic. We're basically tying ourselves into, if they have something here, which, they're not guaranteed to, we could come out of it. But if they have something here, we're tied into getting an island for Cryptic Command. So they attack. To me, that signals that they have another spell they want to cast, and regardless of what it actually signals, getting it off the battlefield saves me 2 life for Snapcaster, and that's what I want access to beyond all else. So Boros Charm here is real bad. Okay, yeah, Boros Charm actually kills us, so we have to Cryptic Command this. It's really unfortunate this is Boros Charm, because this is going to come back and bite us here, that we didn't fetch that red source earlier. So I'm looking at my mana. I think I'm deciding if I'm going to have to Ghost Quarter myself for land, but then I realized that that I can let the Dragon's Claw trigger resolve, gain 1 life, go to 2, and then I can fetch safely. Cutting myself off of red. Like, I'd love to have been able to... Well, no, I couldn't man leak there. So yeah, this is the only play. The real only downside here is that I'm cutting myself off of red. Everything else is fine. Counter draw. Once again, unsummoning does nothing. And now we're in a spot where we can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. We draw Electrolyze. It's unfortunate. So in this spot, let's think about it. Could we cast Thundermaw? We'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 2 mana up. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Casting Thundermaw doesn't do anything here, so we're not punished yet. So we cast Serum Visions. Well, I suppose... No, yeah. We bottom Lightning Bolt. Thinking about it now, it might be in our best interest to have topped that just to have a way to gain a life with Electrolyze. So here, if we had an untapped red source, which we would have, we'd fetched earlier, we would cast Electrolyze to draw a card, go to 2. We cast Lightning Bolt to go to 3, and then Boros Charm gains us a life. We go to 4, and then Boros Charm still deals us lethal. Okay, so yeah, we are still dead, even if we had played optimally. So that being said, yeah, I mean, even I guess actually what I do here is what I said. Yeah, even playing optimally, like so you're up to 2, 3, yeah, then we up to 4, and we're dead to Boros Charm. It had to be Boros Charm. So it's unfortunate. We would have won next turn, but, you know, we top decked out of the second game. They top decked out of the third game. That's just magic. So, yeah, I'm going through the motions here. I don't think I've done the math. I just know this is my only out. Like if we had found a window to snap cast back, is it Charm? Maybe, but I don't think there was one. I think I mean, let me know on in the comments or on Twitter, but I think we played that one pretty well. It's just sometimes they have it. So this entire burn match is very typical of how burn goes against blue-red decks in general. It's even worse if you don't have Dragon's Claw, as you can imagine. So ideally, I like to